Hello and welcome to the tier list section of our Game of the Year extravaganza. If you are an audio listener, we will be uploading this section of the podcast to YouTube, so you should be able to check the description of the show to find it so you can get a visual of what is happening here. And if you somehow found this on YouTube, then we have a whole audio podcast with a bunch of fun categories and our personal Game of the Year picks and all that good stuff. Assuming everything goes correctly, of course. And for audio podcasts, we will recap and make sure you have the information too at the end. But much like we do every year, this is a tier list of all the games we played for the show and reviewed for the show. We do it a little bit differently in the sense that we don't rank within tiers really. Everything in A tier is A tier, etc., etc. Everything in S tier is S tier. But we do limit tiers. And so for this year, every tier will be limited to 3 entries, except for the last tier, which will only be 2. And we do that just to kind of make it a little more interesting and give it a little more stakes. But ultimately, this is meant to be a little laid back, not super intense arguments here. Any notes before we start, Connor?
The other rule for the tier list is that we each get to pick one that is indisputably an S tier.
Yes.
That we're not allowed to argue each other about. So, do you want to start there?
Yeah, why don't you kick us off? What is an S tier video game?
My pick for out of this list is gonna be The Forgotten City.
Oh, God, I'm so glad you picked that.
This is one that, like, if you listen to our episode, like, you probably know. If you've played the game, you also probably know. I think the only faults with it that we had was, like, the combat. But, like, everything else just delivers. It was such a memorable, like, video gaming experience that it's got to be up there.
Yeah, 100%. I think it nails almost everything it's going for, with the exception of that combat, which is a small portion of the game, so it's not detrimental, really. It nails the concept of a time loop, too, in a video game, and I think perfectly executes that and what that can be and be. So, yeah. What
is your S tier game for this year?
I think this will come as no surprise listening to the review, but I think Psychonauts 2 is an S tier video game.
Yeah, that was going to be another pick for me.
I think it is one of the best 3D platformers in general, if not the best modern one at the very least. I think it does everything it sets out to do incredibly well. It's charming, it's funny, it's sad. Like, it has an amazing story, amazing characters. Yeah, I love that game to death.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the only thing that rivals it is Mario Odyssey, and that's a pretty high bar, and it outperforms that one in terms of story and characters. So, very, very good game.
For sure. All right, now we can fight each other if we want.
Yeah, for that last S slot. Well, we could get to that later too.
All right, you wanna hit us off on something else here?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put Rhombus of Ruin in B. How does that sound?
I can live with Rhombus of Ruin in B. I think that's fair.
Not too long, pretty fun, but, like, mechanically not super deep. But, I enjoyed it, but it sits comfortably in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I could see it moving down to C. But,
yeah, if we run out of slots, then I'm okay with that too.
But yeah, certainly not a bad game by any means. It's just a little it's a little basic, I think. But it's more the Psychonauts world, and that's, who's that hurting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll rip off this Band-Aid. I think Ghostwire Tokyo goes in the D slot for me.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Not a bad game. If it starts a series, I'll certainly play the sequel. I think there's enough there to warrant that and to be interesting. I just think it just for a game that comes from the developers of the Evil Within 2, I was pretty disappointed.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think I am in like the top percentile of people who really like that game, but even I am like, yeah, it's not what it could be, and I think it has a lot of room to grow. But as its own game, I think that's a little disappointing. So I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I think the other clear D pick is Hey Pikmin.
Yeah.
Pretty easy pick there, but it's just boring, man. I think it's probably the worst game we played this year.
Yeah, easily. I think in my mind going into this, I'm like, there's 3 games that are basically set, and that's the Forgotten City, Psychonauts 2, and Hey Pikmin.
Yeah, the tops and bottoms.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh, man. I think for now, and I could be persuaded to go up, but I think Pikmin 3 is an A tier game.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at
and
too.
It might be an S tier. We might have to revisit that because I really liked Pikmin 3 a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to argue me on that. I think it's easily, like, mechanically, I think the best in the trilogy. If not on other aspects, I think I'm still more of a fan of the first one, but I would be blind to see that is a fantastic game. So I could be argued up as well.
Yeah, I think it nails on the great ideas of the first 2, while also kind of ditching some of the stuff that didn't work or some of the stuff that was janky for me. And so I think it is like a phenomenal sequel in that trilogy. Less said about the 4th game, the better. But
yeah, fair.
Pikmin 3, banger.
I think we could pretty comfortably put Blue Fire in that tier as well.
Yeah.
Again, when we were doing the categories, which if you didn't listen, it's up on the podcast feed, it was a pretty close race between Psychonauts 2 and Blue Fire for best platformer, but, I mean, it's hard to beat, Like, it's a tough year, but I really liked it. It was kind of a surprise for me. I thought it would be like, pretty cool, but yeah, no, mechanically it's just a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, very cool environment, very fun to jump around, to platform in. Yeah, I think it nails everything it's going for there. Okay. I would like to slot Halo in as an A tier game.
Yeah, this is why the 3's tough, because I was like, Pikmin 1 is also A tier, but like we're running out of slots fast. But yeah, I'm not going to argue against Halo 1 being on there.
Yeah, and we'll come back to this too once everything is in. But I think Halo 1 is great. I love the atmosphere. I think for their first go at a shooter too, it's incredible. I don't know. You know what Halo is.
Yeah, first go at a shooter of that caliber. They had others.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They had Marathon. Fair point.
I think if that's going to sit there, I think Halo 2 should be one below in the B tier. Still a phenomenal game,
could buy that.
But like just it's a little more divisive than the first one. Has a lot going better, a little bit going worse, but I think it can sit there for now.
Okay. I think I'll put Zero Dawn in C. I really like that game. I really like the lore and the world. And I like the combat, but I think almost everything in there is done better in the sequel.
Yeah, I think you could put Forbidden West one above, just because like it does pretty much like most everything the first one does better, except for like the world building. But again, you can't really do that twice, so it's not a fault of that one, I think.
You've already established.
Yeah.
See, now we have an issue.
Yeah.
But let's just So now we have 3 left, but I don't think all 3 of these are C tier. I think Pikmin 2 and Psychonauts 1 are C tier.
See, I would probably swap Psychonauts 1 and Rhombus of Ruin, personally.
Okay. I'm not going to argue that.
Again, like, they're all great, but comparatively, I think that's where they sit.
And I think we agree on Pikmin 2, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so Pikmin 1. So
see, I'm okay with that, but if you want to swap 3, I'm also not going to fight you.
Yeah, see, I feel like I want to swap 3.
yeah, do that.
Okay.
Now we have to
How
think about this.
How are we feeling? How does this sit with you?
It's sitting all right with me. I think the main things we have to think about are I think comparing the 2 middle Psychonauts games, I guess, the first and second one. Not 2 being the third, you know how it goes. I think those are the 2 we have to think about, and where Blue Fire sits in that.
So hang on. Okay, so what are you suggesting? Are you suggesting we swap Blue Fire and Psychonauts?
I mean, what do you think? Because, like, when I think about those 2, I think visually and sort of emotionally, Psychonauts 1 stands out a little bit more. I think that's mainly my personal feelings towards Blue Fire's world and aesthetic, where I'm, like, just not crash hot on them. But also, I think Blue Fire just plays a lot better than Psychonauts 1.
It does. That's the thing, is now I'm weighing, like, because I think you're correct in terms of, like, Psychonauts in terms of place, like, aesthetics. You know, I think it is. I think it's miles above most of the games on here, honestly. But Blue Fire plays so well, so I think that's where I'm stuck on that.
Yeah. And then Rhombus of Ruin and Psychonauts 1. I think that's the other thing where it's like, when I think about which one I'm going to go back to more, I think Rhombus of Ruin, mainly because it's short, but also that would do a lot to discredit Psychonauts 1, which I don't really want to do. It's just that, like, Psychonauts 1 is a game that I put down a couple times and then only finished for the review. But, like, I could see myself going back to it. Whereas Rhombus of Ruin, I feel like I could, show that to people. I could play it again. But, again, this is kind of personal experience and doesn't take into account the most of it.
I think I could be convinced of that if you're set on it.
See, I'm not. That's why I'm like...
What if we, even though it doesn't matter, I spiritually, we just kind of throw that up there.
Does
that make you feel better?
It makes me feel a little better.
Because the problem is, I would say I'm not willing to budge on Halo 2 or Horizon moving down.
Yeah, no, I think that's where those
have
sit
to swap
comfortably.
Those. I don't know. I think I'm happy with it.
I think I am too. I think I'm arguing for the sake of argument, but I think this is pretty comfortable.
Okay. Locking it in 3, 2, 1. Tier list.
Pretty easy. I mean, there's only 14, but...
Yeah, that's all the games we reviewed this year. Yeah,
see,
once again,
it's going to get tricky next year when we do the rest of the Halo games.
Yeah.
Ooh, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, if you did watch the video version of this, there's a whole ass podcast. We'll throw in timestamps so you can skip this section when you get to it. But yeah, thank you for watching this, and we're gonna get back to the podcast portion.